What is going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our moving day live stream for the Cognizant Classic. Gonna break down the prop and betting side over there at Underdog and Prize Picks. Any three balls or matchups you want to talk about as well, and get ready all for the action out there for round three. So first off, hopefully you're having a fantastic Friday. You haven't quite cracked the seal on the alcohol this week, but hey, we poured a little bit of whiskey up. It'll be the first time this weekend that we're doing so, which has definitely had some self-discipline, I'd say, because I've had access to free liquor out there on the golf course, and hey, we've held off to this point. We've got to pace ourselves, of course, be able to do all this content for you guys. So that's what I prioritize over a little bit of fun on the course, but glad to get after it. Out here for rounds 3 and 4. What's all going on? Go Collect, which, by the way, I finally realized that that's probably your name and not Go Cullet. So welcome on in, Go Collect, to the live stream. Got Jamari down there as well. Yeah, Henley, by the way, solid from tee to green, but lost a bunch of strokes putting today. So the deep dive on him is that he's a really good bounce back candidate, but I'm sure we'll talk about him a little bit later, Jamari, after we get through these conditions. What's going on, Darren? Yeah, Spieth had the classic Spieth scorecard. And I'm going right back to the well tomorrow. So I'm sure we'll talk about him as well. But before we start talking about props, players, that sort of thing, I like to start it off with the golf course. So let's talk about some of the averages from today, which were exactly spot on with what I called for last night. I told you guys that the harder pins were going to lead to more bogeys, called for about 2.5 per round. Well, look at that, 2.53. And also told you that the birdie average was likely going to go down a hair. And I thought it'd be like 4.4 to 4.5 per round. And that minus 1.5 scoring average that we also referenced all ended up coming to fruition. Now, Gary Woodland couldn't make birdies for shit today, so it didn't help us out with the free slip. I also had a few other guys that played like absolute sacks of shit today, but the course read was literally as close as humanly possible. In fact, one of the better rounds that I've ever called in my life. So I like where the process is. Obviously, boots in person, being able to see all of this play really helps us out with doing so. But out there, the round number 3, I think that these are going to improve a little bit, partially because of the cut line. Getting some of your lower tier players out of there is going to clean it up when it comes to the bogeys or worse, maybe give you a slight increase with your birdie average as well. But these moving day pins that we're going to go through here in a minute or two also look a little bit more accessible than what you had for round number 2. And the weather also looks just as calm, if not actually even a hair calmer over there for Saturday's play. So all of those factors put together, I think is going to lead to a 2 under par scoring average, a birdie average that gets closer to 4.65, maybe even 4.75, a little bit over what it was for round number 1. And your bogey average, I still see a few difficult pin locations out there. I think it'll go down just a little bit because of that cut line, getting some of those outlier performances out of the way. But it's not going to go down drastically. Like if it's going to go down, it'll probably be to like 2.25 to maybe like 2.3 per round. So, little minute changes, but when you drop it by 0.25 in one direction, right, you bump up the birdies by 0.25 in the other. That's how you go from a minus 1.5 scoring average to something closer to like minus 2. So that's how all of that math works out there. And it's kind of what I'm expecting over there for Saturday. In terms of your weather, we'll go ahead and deep dive that here. You'll see that the weather looks pretty flat the entire day. So if you guys caught my Ship It Nation stream over there for Showdown, you guys could see that there's not likely going to be a massive weather edge. Now, this could change tomorrow morning, so always be on top of the forecast as much as you possibly can. But whether you're starting in the morning, afternoon, the wind doesn't seem to be a real X factor. And the receptiveness of the greens, they could get a little bit firmer as the day goes on. But with the guys towards the lead going off late, I think that the form difference could make up for the receptiveness of the greens. So when we go out there, we take a split out there between the first and second half. I don't think that there's going to be much of a discernible edge in either direction. Now, for these pin locations, we're going to go through these rather quickly because I already went through them myself. This first hole pin looks absolutely diabolical. It's even further into this green. It's kind of similar to what they had out here for round number 2, where it was close to that left side of this hole. It's a little harder back there, just a longer shot in. It brings this long miss into play, which is a very difficult up and down. But this was already a pretty difficult pin to start with. So I wouldn't say that this one is all that much harder than what you had for today. Just maybe like 5/100ths of a birdie more per round. Like you're not talking about a massive difference in that scoring. Hole number 2 is over here in this front right corner. I would say it's a much easier pin location than what you had for today. Today it was tucked in that way back corner. A little bit of a longer shot in, also brought in that left and long miss. over here on the right side, it is on top of a ridge. So your birdie average, I don't think is going to go up that much, maybe like 5/100ths of a birdie per round. But your bogey average, I think, is going to drop maybe by 0.1 to 0.15 out there from round 2 to 3. So I think you're going to see a cleaner scorecard over here at hole number 2, a lot of which comes down to the tee shot, because this pin location wasn't really the issue today. It's that the wind direction made it really hard off the tee here, and you were hitting sometimes 180 to 210 yard shots out there into hole number 2, which the front pin, by the way, if it is that same kind of wind, is going to make that a whole lot easier, because you can miss short and then have an easy up and down. Hole number 3 is in this back left corner, which it might be a hair more difficult than rounds 1 and 2. Rounds 1, it was about where my cursor is right now. Round 2, you can see it over there on the right side. For round number 3, it's in this back little peninsula, which makes it more protected when it comes to your chipping up to it. But for eagles, I would argue that it's a better chance at eagle than even what you had there for days 1 and 2, because you have a little bit of extra room to run in shots. Because you're hitting something from 250 plus yards, your bombers might have like 230 yards in here to hole number 3. You're going to want some room to try and move it close to that pin location. So I would argue that this one would be about the same kind of scoring average, maybe a hair less birdies, and it would be like hardly a difference at all there. But I think you're going to see more eagles here that kind of make up for that. Hole number 4, so let's go to the next one here. It's a short positional par 4. It's towards the left corner here, so it's on top of a little ledge. Or sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong hole here. So it is over here on the left side, though, not protected by a ledge, which is a positive, but you do have a little chipping hollow over the back side here. So it's accessible. You're going to be hitting a wedge in, because it is a shorter, more positional par 4. But if you miss with a pull over here to the left side, it is a problematic up and down, which is kind of emblematic of a moving day pin location. You give players a chance if they execute their shot, but if you're just a little bit off, a little bit long and left of this pin location here, you're going to be in a world of trouble as well. So there's a lot of variance with that sort of pin location, right? You hit a good shot, you birdie. If you hit a bad one, you might be looking at a bogey there. Hole 5 is in this back left corner. So this is a par 3, longer shot than what you had for today, but it's further away from the water. It does bring this long miss into play. So, having your distance control is going to be key here at hole number 5. But I think the birdie rate goes up because you can be more aggressive to this back pin location, and you're going to see less doubles. You're not going to see any water balls really out here to this sort of pin unless you shank one over there to the left side, like a duck hook, that sort of thing. Next up, you have hole number 6. This is a much easier pin than today. Tee shot is still kind of the name of the game here, which is the case at 2 as well. Like your hard holes here, if you hit a good drive, you kind of bail yourself out of trouble. So if we go up to the green, the reason why I say it's a little bit easier is because it's on this front peninsula as opposed to way here in the back left corner. If you miss the fairway and you have to lay up in front of the green, it's a much shorter chip, a much more straightforward chip than having to go through the green, which was much longer, and you had this little slope to deal with as well. It's you're going to see much less bogeys, I'd say, over here at hole 6, not only because of the pin, but also because you have the higher tier players, the ones that weren't shanking the ball off the tee. Hole number 7, you've got a front right pin, which is similar to today. It's a little bit deeper and a little bit further into the green than what you had with the one today, which tucked there to the left. I would say it's just as easy as today, actually maybe even a little bit easier, because it looks like they have a little bit more room to get it close there. But what they sometimes do here at hole 7, which they haven't done for the first few days, is they move it up a tee box. And that's something that you see over here in moving day setups. Heck, even holes 1 through 6, like 5, right? They might even move up that tee box over there on that par 3. That's something that you see a lot from the PGA Tour. And if they do that at either 5 or 7 here, that would take them from slightly easier pin locations to holes that play a whole lot easier than what you saw there. Let's go to hole 8 next. So hole 8 is going to be a short par 4. It is in the back middle, and it's kind of towards the left. It is 7 paces off the left side here, but for all intents and purposes, that is pretty much a back middle pin location. A little bit harder than today. Today it was in the front. It was a wedge in, so you had plenty of room to spin the ball back, especially in the morning when you had the more receptive greens. Over here to this back right corner, it's less protected. There's no bunkers, right, that you had here in the front right, heck, even front left. You had a little bunker there towards the front side, but it's a harder pin location to hit it to like 2-3 feet. I think you're going to see a lot of people to this back pin hitting it to like 7 to 10 feet. And it'll probably play to like the same scoring average. Harder pin, but the better players are going to score better there than the guys before the cut line. Hole number 9 is a back right pin, so it's kind of close to where it was for round 1. Round 1, it was a little bit closer to the middle of this back left corner. Now it's tucked towards that back right side. So I would say that this one's a little harder than today, just because it's a longer approach shot in. And if you miss the green, the chip shot is a little bit more dicey than what you had here for round 2. But this isn't a massive difference. Like this one over here, I actually thought it might play a little bit easier than round 1, but this chipping hollow to the right side proved to be a little bit more problematic than I thought. Hole 10 is in the front right corner. Thought we were getting ahead of ourselves there, but over here towards the right side of this reachable par 5. So just like today, you're going to see some eagles. You're going to see some guys that get it close. If you miss over here in this left bunker, like a lot of people were doing the first few rounds, you're going to have a ton of room to work with to get it close to that pin. Now, if you miss in this right side here, where you've also seen quite a few players miss when they mishit it, it's a kind of dicey up and down. So hole number 10 here is going to be about missing on the right side of the hole, which because it's not their first hole of the day, because it's 2 sums off of hole number 1, I think that a lot of players are going to be able to birdie this because they've had 9 holes under their belt at this point, and they should have a pretty good idea where their golf ball is going at that stage. Next up, you have hole 11. This is the one that's over here on the left side. It is on top of a little ledge. So this one's easier than today, just because it's not as close to the water. It's a much shorter shot in. It's also less protected in that back right than the back right corner. But this slope in front of it is going to make controlling your spin a very big deal into that green, especially if they like make that hole shorter, which they had it tipped out for rounds 1 and 2. But this is another hole that I've seen them move up the tee box on to try and give players a wedge into that kind of pin location. Hole number 12 is a middle left pin location. It's a kind of in a little low spot here. You can see some slope to the left, a little bit of slope to the right. This will be by far the easiest pin location that we have at 12. 13 is also super easy. 13 is going to be a front pin location on what is already a wedge shot, usually like 80 to 100 yards out here into hole 13. And now it's on this front peninsula and a bunch of slope that's helping you behind the pin location as well. 14 is a really difficult hole, and this is a harder pin location, I would say. It's over here to the right side, kind of like it was for round 1. Round 1, it was a little bit left of where it will be for today. Today, it's even closer to the water, or I should say for tomorrow, tomorrow to be closer to the water, but round 1, it was harder than today, right? Today, it was over here in this front left corner. If you missed short, it was pretty straightforward up and down, like some of the other pins that we're seeing for round 3. But this time, it is in that back right corner. It could play a little bit more difficult. Next up, we have 15 here. So 15 is on this front side. This is the start of the bear trap. And this one could bring in doubles because it is a lot closer to the water, but it's more scoreable than this back left corner. It's a shorter shot in. Sometimes they'll even shorten this tee box here. Like today, it was 180 yards. If they played it to that front side, it'd be like 160 from here, but they'll move it over to this tee box over here. And they don't even have to shorten it that much. Like they could put it where my cursor is right here. It'll play like 130 if they do it to that kind of hole location. And you'd see a lot of birdies at that hole. Now, if you mishit one, right, you mishit the wedge, you've got water all over it, but you're going to see a much higher birdie rate if they decide to move up that tee box, which we'll have no idea on until play actually starts. But the par 3s are definitely candidates for that on moving day. 16 would be a back left pin. This one is brutally hard. So kind of like 14, like there's some back 9 pins here where I could see some guys making some bogeys. It's on top of this slope. It's also a longer shot in, but it is a better angle into this green. So, you know, it's got some slope that makes it harder, but it is an easier angle at the very least. 17 is a back right pin location. This one is tucked near the water. It is exponentially more difficult than what you had for days 1 and 2. But then you get to 18, right? And then they give you an easy pin. So 18 over here is on this front little corner. So the moving day setup is pretty much exactly in line with what we would expect. They want to give players chances to go out there and make some birdies. Like 12, 13, great examples of that. These par 5s, all very accessible. 3 would be the hardest of the par 5s. And even that one, I still think you're going to see some eagles at it. And then they have some hard holes as well. Like to go back to the sheet, 17, 14 really stand out. What else? I guess 5, if they tip it out, that one could be pretty hard. but you have so many of these easier locations that birdie average is going to go up, especially after the cut line. Bogey average, though, that's going to be the X factor. I think there's a chance it stays at 2.5, but if I was betting money on it, I'd have it going down there to like 2.25 per round. So that -2 scoring average that we were talking about before, I still feel very good about after going through those pin locations. And it's exactly what we'd expect to see over here at the Cognizant Classic. So now we're going to go through a few props. We've got some prize picks, some underdog stuff to go through. And you can see one of the props that I already had my eye on has moved over there with Daniel Berger. So luckily, I was able to get that exposure in myself. Don't play it now that it's moved by 0.5, but luckily there's a plenty more on the board that we can go through together. What's going on, Jamar? So yeah, let's go through the Henley stuff. I know you wanted to see a little deep dive out there on the stats, which by the way, smash the like button if you guys haven't already. Let's pump up those numbers over here in the live stream, get it out there to even more people. But round number 2, you can see that he lost a bunch of strokes putting. That's where I think the upside is. If you want to take him on a flyer, kind of hope that the short game comes back to his mean, he could have a low day. Now, the ball striking left a little bit to be desired, right? Didn't have his best stuff, but round number 1, he did. So he has a sample size of playing a whole lot better. You didn't have it getting easier on your bingo card. Makes sense with how the pins were today. Yeah, they were harder today. You've got the cut line. It's the same kind of conditions. So I feel pretty confident about it getting easier. And just to give you guys a little transparency on that, Data Golf has it at 2.4 under par for their projected average. So they think it's going to be even easier than I do. I think it's going to play like -2, something like that. They've got it pretty much a half a stroke even easier than that. So let's talk through these. So first one I've got over here is this Ben Griffin over on birdies. If I think the average is going to go up to like 4.6, 4.75 per round, that's gaining like 0.35 to 0.25 birdies to the field. And considering that Ben Griffin last year was let's go down here, number 37 birdie or better percentage player on all the PGA Tour. We're using 2024 because it's a much larger sample size than what we have here in 2025. But if you take a look at Ben Griffin this year, it's not like he's playing poorly. He's coming in as, let's see, a top 20 recent form player. So that's shots gained over their last 12 measured rounds. He's top 20 out of every single player in this field. And after the cut line, he's top 15 in that category, by the way. And last year was an elite tier birdie maker. And if you take a look at some of the short game stuff, so some of like the 24 rounds, last 12 round sample sizes, he's top 20 in the field when it comes to birdie or better percentage as well. So I know he's got a later tee time, which would sometimes concern us. You know, the fact that he's up there in the top 5 as well would sometimes concern us with this sort of play. But because he's starting, I think it's 3-4 shots off the lead at this point, because he's been playing so well over the first few rounds, I'll take a shot on him. He's a stud. He's got to go out there, make 5+ birdies to move up that leaderboard tomorrow. And if we take a look at his shots gained metrics, you'll see why I think he has a good chance to repeat, because it was very sustainable. He gained across all 4 stat categories today, most significantly both off the tee and around the green, which around the green, whatever. He's probably not going to do that again, but the ball striking, we're both into the positive, almost a stroke over there with the irons. And then round number 1, it was the ball striking that went out there and carried his game. He was slightly positive off the tee, whatever there, but he gained over a stroke over there with his approach play. So if you put it all together, you can see a player that is doing it in, not in a crazy way, right? It's not like he has 5 shots gained putting. It's not like he's gained 6 shots gained around the green over the first few rounds. Sustainable kind of stat profile, sitting there at T10 heading into the final round, and within striking distance of that lead as well. So somebody I bet outright this week, I obviously hope that he can make that jump up the board. I was going to pair it over there with Daniel Berger under on strokes, which by the way is -140 over there on the books. So it was plus EV. That's probably why a lot of people played it and it already got bumped so quickly. But there's a lot of other props that we can mix in as well. And those were the only 2 that I had enough time to deep dive. But I was taking a look at this before, and the 68.5, especially if you can find like an elite tier player, I am for taking some unders. If I think the scoring average is going to be around -2, that'd be around 69 strokes. That's asking these guys to go out there and gain 1 stroke to the field, which for Daniel Berger at a course with his elite tier course history, with the solid ball striking stats the first few rounds, that's why that was an absolute no-brainer for me. And by the way, guys, if you do want to catch props like that Daniel Berger one that I ended up taking, make sure you're on the Patreon page, right? Because as soon as I found that, I posted that over there. My members were able to get that in before it ended up moving. And you can see why I played Berger. I mean, though he didn't have maybe the best round today. What did he end up shooting? Like -3. So he still would have went under this sort of line. You take a look at his round 2 stats. He lost around the green. He lost over there with the putter, and then included a water ball over there on hole number 11. Now, he hit it out of the water, but it essentially played like a penalty because he only hit it like 5 yards to the right of him. But even with that, he still gained with his approach play, right? Still into the positive there, 0.3 strokes, gained off the tee and left room to improve in this short game and still got to -3. So that was kind of the idea with Daniel Berger. Kind of unfortunate that they moved that, but I would bet, by the way, and this is where you can get your exposure on this, that it hasn't moved on Underdog yet. So if we go over to the Underdog side, and look at that, I guess I spoke way too quickly when it came to saying that. They also moved them down to 68 strokes. So these sports books are pretty quick when it comes to the bumps. That's why it pays to be a part of that Patreon page. But yeah, we'll find a replacement. Don't you guys worry. Completely forgot about the whiskey that we have there. It's Blanton's, and it's fantastic. No idea why we forgot about that. So let's look at Henley here. So Henley was another one that I thought might be a plus EV value. And looking at it here, yeah, he's -135 over there on Draftkings. And let me see what he is over here on Fanduel. So yeah, he's -140 out there to the under. So I like the Ben Griffin prop. You guys could take these two for a 2-man. I would be totally fine with that. But I'm going to find another prop to play here with Henley because I need to find a pairing right out here for my guy. And Jordan Spieth was somebody I was considering. I'm a huge Homer fan, but based on what I saw today, I mean, he was good outside of one shot. Out there in hole 17, hit the ball into the water. That triple bogey made what was already going to be like a -3, -4 round look like a mediocre round, right? Out there, -1, a little bit worse than your field average. This is the kind of player I could look for a little bounce back. Outside of that one hole, I mean, shots gained metrics pretty much green across the board over there for Jordan Spieth. We already went through the Henley deep dive, right? I know we had the question about that. I brought that up, but just to show you Jordan Spieth from today, even with that water ball, which by the way, cost him 1.5 strokes right there, only lost about 2 strokes over there with his approach play. Positive off the tee, positive in the 2 short game categories. Go back to round number 1, positive in every category but around the green, which by the way, the reason why he didn't gain or lose a bunch around the green is he hit all but 2 of his greens out there, right? So he didn't even have that much of a chance to go out there and gain around the green round 1. So I like how he's hitting it. I mean, even today, he hit 72% of his greens in regulation. So he hit 13 of his 18. Well above the average, looks in control of his golf ball. And if it had been 14 of the 18, right? So if he had gone just one more today, he could have been into the positive over here on his shots gained approach. It's crazy how that one shot really throws off your entire profile. Now, the issue with the Jordan Spieth one is I already know that they don't have it up on the books. So unless they added it over here, let's see. I don't think they did. Why does it say 1 out of 1 up there? Then it's not bringing up Spieth. Let me refresh this. I guess maybe it's something that they just added. Come on, is Jordo even on here? I don't think so, right? Yeah, so no Jordan Spieth prop when it comes to, comparing it to the sports books. But even at that sort of number, that's probably something I'd be comfortable with. We can take a look at this birdie board, though. So they do have Jordan over there at 5 birdies, which I have to say I agree with for projection. I would still lean on the over, though. These elite tier players like a Jordan Spieth, I think the average can be about 4.7 per round. They average about 0.5 gain to the field. So that puts them at like 5.2, maybe like 5.25. Birdies are better per round. Hence why I would lean over, but I don't know if that's enough of a lean to make it like quote unquote value, as some people would say. Another player I was looking at is Keith Mitchell. Keith Mitchell did make it to 5 birdies or better today. That was despite him 4-putting hole 18, which I got to see that was quite something else out there. But he's playing well. I mean, he's up there towards the top end of the leaderboard. And if we take a look at the birdie stats from last year, he was the number 2 birdie maker on all of the PGA Tour. Now, the issue I had with Keith is that he's had some poor form recently, hasn't necessarily been playing the best golf. And we do have some guys on here. Like I was looking at Denny earlier. Denny's got to be aggressive to try to move up this leaderboard. Some moving day pin locations. Like I don't think that kind of over would be out of play. Heck, even a Patrick Rogers, he rates pretty well when it comes to birdie or better percentage. Now to show you Rogers, I believe was top 50, but let's check. So 76, a little bit worse than what I ended up thinking there. Denny doesn't rank as good. Denny, I believe, ranks outside the top 100 on tour when it comes to birdie or better percentage. So yeah, I can see they're at 112. but he is at 4.5. And that is technically below the average, right? Out there for the field. So I don't think that's the worst idea whatsoever out there with Denny McCarthy. So maybe chat can help me with picking out their favorite over here, but I'd say Denny would be on my short list of props I'd be thinking about taking. I guess Keith, can't completely rule him out. He was the number 2 birdie maker on tour last year after all. The issue, by the way, to go through the whole Keith Mitchell thing, the putter today was ice cold, but if we go to his actual form, and maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe it's not as bad as I think, but T25, losing a bunch putting. Pebble Beach, losing a bunch putting. He's at least making cuts. You know what? I take it back. We're going to play the Keith Mitchell one. I thought the form was worse than what it was here, right? And that's why it's good to double check, right? Sometimes your biases, sometimes what you think just doesn't end up being reality. And sure, there's no top 10s here. Hasn't done anything flashy, but top 25. No cut event, top 33, whatever. That kind of sucks. But you almost top 20 at the Amex. It's respectable at least. And then the top 30 over there at Sony Open. All right, we're going to make this the second slip that we take. So the Russell Henley one is -140 for the under. That would be close to what we'd consider plus EV value. And then we also have this Keith Mitchell over on birdies, which we don't have a line for comparison, but just to show you some of the other guys that they have posted, they've got Michael Kim at -130. Doug Gim is actually juiced a little bit under, it seems, over there at 4.5. But guys like a Berger, -155. Jake Knapp, -145 for the over. Look at that. Henley, -145 for his over at 4.5 birdies. Sepp Straka at -155. And Keith is in worse form than those kind of players. So I kind of understand why they have that kind of heavy juice on it. But last year, right, Keith Mitchell lapped all those guys when it came to birdie or better percentage. He's got some made cuts recently, right? So it's not like he's playing terrible golf. Even if he's not going to project as well as those other players, which I think is fair to say, he'd probably be at least like -130 to -140 out there towards his over. And, I've gotten pretty good at kind of guessing the odds for these books. Like even with Jordan Spieth, like we didn't have a line for comparison there. There's a good chance I go out there and enter that. And by the way, I guess if you need another prop to go out there and enter, maybe to go out there and mix in with Ben Griffin, right, to make it two mans, you could go with this Jordan Spieth prop, which I may end up entering myself, because I think he should probably be like -135, -140 under. He's a better player than some of these other guys we have at -135, -140. And the form outside of that one shot is just as good, if not better, on approach and off the tee than those kind of guys. So we're going to make it these two for the official second slip that we go out here for the stream. But if you guys need to take something over there with Ben Griffin, not against the Jordan Spieth lean over there as well. Alrighty, guys, that's all I've got for the live stream. It's getting late over here. I've got to wake up early to get out there to the golf course. Of course, guys, for all the exposure that I'm entering, make sure to check out my Patreon page. On there, I'll be posting all the prize picks and underdog slips that I'm taking, as well as all the 3 balls and matchup bets that I can over there on the Discord channel. We don't have a board over there in Hard Rock Bet quite yet, so that's why I don't have anything posted myself. But once we get that, likely tomorrow morning, I'll be able to go out there, post some of that over there for the Discord members. But that's all I've got over there for moving day. Hopefully, it treats us nicely. We can go out there and get positive into our ROI. Smash that like button if you guys haven't already, and subscribe so you don't miss any of the content to come. It'll, of course, include also our stream over there for Sunday and round 4 at the Cognizant.